feel free to like share as many questions as you would like to throw at me, and let's keep it very conversational. And yeah, let's make the session all about you and how you would want to perhaps pursue a career, perhaps in visual design or in UI UX or as an illustrator. And this is very special to me, and I've mentioned about this previously as well, that this is a full circle moment for me, because I was very confused when I entered IIIT, and I didn't have a lot of people who were just like me. So I struggled a lot, and I'm glad that I can be here and talk about something that is very personal to me. And in a lot of ways, my career path is also sort of very unique when you compare it to other IIITians. So I'm glad that IIIT acknowledges that we can go ahead and take up very interesting, very unique careers, and all of our careers are as valid. So just thank you so much, first of all, for having me and for organizing this. I think Dipali is with us today as well. So thanks, Dipali, for coordinating with me so well and getting me here. And I saw Divyanshu's joined here as well. So hi, Divyanshu. Divyanshu and I have been in touch in the last few months. I've been helping him a little with his project. So yeah, I'm happy to see familiar faces around as well. And yeah, I just wanted to also understand who exactly, like, what kind of streams are people here from? Like, is everybody from computer science? Because I was majoring in electronics, so I just want to like know and understand. We can have like, you are free to speak and say, "Acha, aapko kuch bhi bolna ho agar," so please feel free to say. Okay, yeah, I think comments are better. Okay, understood. So you can also speak, by the way. Everybody's free to have a conversation with me, ताकि मुझे भी पता चले कौन कौन बोल रहा है, कौन कौन है. So I don't feel like I'm speaking to my computer. Okay, cool. So we have a lot of, I think, CSE grads, and there's a mix. There's some EC somewhere in there as well, but good. Okay, so I'll actually start off with a little bit about myself and my initial days at IIIT, and then we will just get into more questions from your end, whatever questions you have, and yeah, let's take it forward that way. So I am from the 2013 to 2017 batch, electronics and communication. And I still remember the day I actually got my admission at IIIT. I was just completely ecstatic. I was an outside Delhi kid, so there were only 15% seats back then. I don't know how it works these days, but back then it was just 15% seats which were given out to outside Delhi kids. And I remember walking into the admissions hall, and there was one seat available for computer science, and I said very confidently that I do not want to take computer science. I want to be an electronics and communication engineer, not knowing anything about what either of computer science or electronics entailed, but I was just completely like out there, that I'm here to do electronics and become the greatest electronics and communication engineer that ever lived. But I think the first day of my class, it was completely like, I was just I was like a kid in a candy store. I was completely enamored by how beautiful the college campus was. I remember walking into the classroom. We had the lecture hall in the ground floor, and we entered, and of course it was really big, and there were so many kids out there. And we had the first class, which was done by I remember Arun Biswas sir. I don't know if any of you know him. He is an absolute legend of sorts, and we were just so happy that we had him taking our first session. And it was about digital circuits. So of course the first year was a mix of both electronics and communication, which was electronics and computer science, which was good. We got a little bit of context about everything, and we could sort of decide eventually where do we want to sort of take our careers ahead. And yeah, we had like a digital circuits class, we had a linear algebra class, and we had an intro to programming. All three of them were completely like, मेरे लिए फारसी थे, कुछ भी समझ नहीं आ रहा था. And yeah, walked out of the class and I was like, maybe hopefully things will get better. And then it just got worse. I completely stopped understanding anything that I was taught in the classroom. So it was not the kind of story that I had sort of imagined in my head. And I think the first semester I was really struggling to sort of understand what's happening in the college. And I think I was completely shocked that I was no more the topper of the class, and I was in fact like some of the worst performing kids in the classroom, because I was just not able to sort of really connect to what was being taught in the classroom. So I think the first semester, in fact, I was very sort of in two minds about what I was doing, and I was like, maybe I should just drop off, maybe I should continue and drop off and sit for design, take up something that is more design centric. I don't think computer science is my thing, but somehow I just thought that पैसे बहुत दे दिए हैं, अभी कर लेते हैं course, we'll see what happens eventually. So yeah, went ahead with it, and I think in my second year of college, I sort of got a little more context about the world of design. And of course, we had Inc, which is the design club. I'm not sure if it's still live. Is it still on? I think Khalid might be able to tell me. Is Inc still on?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, great. And so how does it work? Like, do you still have like competitions or like hackathons, design hackathons, where you select people to become part of the team?
So they are much more like currently organizing workshop for the students, and
Okay.
yep.
Okay, and it is still done by the IIIT kids, right?
Yeah, right.
Okay, great. So yeah, I think that's how it used to happen back then. We used to have a lot of design hackathons. So we used to have a lot of, I think, weekly competitions, and you would send out your entries, and if they like your work, they give you, I think, 100-200 रुपए देते थे. उसमें भी बहुत अच्छा लगता था. I used to feel like a big winner, and yeah, I think one of those competitions had happened, and that's how I got into Ink, and I started exploring a lot of softwares and tools. And I used to be an illustrator, so I used to draw stuff on my on my sketchbook, and then I just felt that maybe this is time for me to sort of and Instagram was also a big thing around 2013, 2014. So which I will also talk about. If you are really looking forward at a career as a visual designer, excuse me, or as an illustrator, even in fact as a UI UX designer or as an interaction designer, it's very important to have that social media presence, which I was completely oblivious to, of course, when I started off. But I was like, Instagram, hey, it's a new platform. Let me try and see what I can do with it. And I have to also be very honest about how confused I was. So I was very willing to experiment and see exactly where can I find myself. What will eventually work out for me. I think that was a very important question that was in my mind. So yeah, I just sort of started off with putting out my sketches on Instagram, and then I just thought, maybe let's see how things unfold. So yeah, made I think after putting out a lot of sketches, I eventually started, applying for internships. And it was actually through IIIT. There was a design, it wasn't a design firm, it was a startup called Bazinga Box, which was headed by Rohit Sapnes back then. He works with Uber right now. But yeah, the startup eventually had to be dissolved. But back then it was just starting out. So I was like very excited to just, try out this space and see, how I can perhaps, give it a try. And so I started making a lot of illustrations for them. And thankfully, they just chose me out of like basis my illustrations, like which were done on my notebook. So they wanted me to do a set of caricatures and, some illustrations for their website, for their packaging and all of that. And all of it had to be very based on like digital illustrations, but I was still very new to it, so I didn't know much about it. So I was just like, "Dekhte hain, we'll see how things unfold." So yes, just went ahead with it. Somehow figured how to install Photoshop on my system, and just started off with it. And I kept making a lot of illustrations. It was a very small internship. I was getting like 3,000 rupees per month, which is like absolute which is nothing basically. But I was just happy that someone was basically giving me an opportunity to work with them on the basis of these sketches that I had made during my summer break. So yeah, I think I got into it, then saved some money, and because I was, like I said, I was very, very curious. So I wanted to sort of, try out a lot of other things as well. And I think my main motto back then was to just, save some money so that I can actually apply for back then for Mr. Gay World, because I think I forgot to mention the fact that, I was not only like, my experience in a lot of ways was unique, not only because I was struggling to find my metal in terms of where do I want to see myself eventually with via IIIT, but I was also a very unique kid in terms of, the fact that I am a queer kid of color, and I did not see anybody around me who was just like me in any way at all. And everybody was, a group of really, I just felt that everybody was so different from me, and I could not sort of find my belonging in the boys or the girls. And I was just like and my gender expression also is very androgynous, so it was very difficult to just sort of understand, or even sometimes ask for help, have healthier conversations with my classmates. So yeah, all of those things were happening. So I felt like I had to first overcome this hurdle and this mental block in my head that I am queer, but I'm here to make my career, and therefore let's just focus on all those things that matter. So yeah, I think saved some money from that internship, applied for Mr. Gay India, won it, went for Mr. Gay World. And I think once I came back, it gave me a little global perspective of what's happening all around the world, because I think I was very sure that I wanted to be a designer eventually. So even during my time at Mr. Gay World, I would my pageant happened in Europe, so I actually made some time and actually went out to agencies, reached out to them, had some conversations with them, understood what was happening. So it gave me a little bit of perspective about what's happening around the world, because I was very sure that I wanted to work as a designer for a lot of people, not just for like a particular demographic, but I wanted my design language, to be very global. So yeah, I think once I came back, I continued making illustrations, and I think that was the time when I started networking, and I started realizing that if I start putting out my work on Instagram, or start putting out my work on Behance and maintaining a portfolio, having conversations or reaching out to people via these different platforms that there were, it helped me a lot to sort of form like a circle of sorts, where I can have conversations with all these influential people that I looked up to, and also get to know exactly what they were doing. And even in those days specifically, I was very, very interested specifically in illustrations. I was not thinking about anything else. I was just I didn't even know a lot about UI UX. So yeah, everything was just all about exploring the world of illustrations, and seeing how I can push through, and if I can make a possible career out of it. So made a lot of them eventually. I think through Instagram, Masaba Gupta, who is the head of House of Masaba, she reached out to me, and she really liked my work, and that's how I actually ended up at House of Masaba. And before that, oh yes, I also had a little bit of an experience with the Godrej India Culture Lab. I was working at the Godrej headquarters, and even there, while I was there were a lot of designers, packaging designers, or people who were designing, for print, advertising campaigns. All of these people, designers, I got to sort of have a conversation with and understand, what was happening, how can I push my work forward. So I did a lot of that, and eventually, I think step by step, I started understanding what works, what doesn't. How can I make my work more global? How can I approach, how can I create conversations, relevant conversations with my work? And after working for like a certain amount of time as an illustrator, I of course went for my master's to NIFT, and I have majored in experience design. So that's where I just felt that I needed to push through and see how I can take my illustrations and then sort of extrapolate it and see how I can make a career as a visual designer. And I remember my first job as a UI UX designer was with Dimension, which is a menswear label, and I was supposed to design their complete e-commerce platform. And I was given their brand book, and I was told that you have to be in the box but still think out of the box. So I think working with corporates, or working with all of these maybe startups, or working in a more restricted environment, I think was quite a learning experience for me, because earlier it was just me making drawing and making it for me, and making sure that I'm able to have conversations or initiate conversations with my work. But Now it was no more about me, it was about my users, and I had to contextualize my work. I had to become a mentor and sort of guide them through a certain platform. And I think that transition for me probably was one of the biggest lessons for me, because I started learning, acha, okay, this is the platform that I'm in now. How do I, leverage it in a smart way, and get a lot of business? Because when you start working, as a UI UX designer, it no more is about how pretty it is. To be very honest, I think even like looking at an Amazon, for example, or an eBay, or a Reddit. I mean, these are platforms which are doing so incredibly well, but they don't have like the best, visual design. So I think I do believe that, if you're working as a UI UX designer, especially like in a country like India, which is one of the most complex demographics, to be very honest, reach out to, it's very important to understand this demographic. So we do a lot of user testing. So for context, I work as a visual designer, by the way, with HDFC at the moment, and I work under the digital banking vertical. So I design a lot of financial products for them right now. I've been designing their stock brokerage applications, their e-wallets, and their card management applications. So a lot of interesting financial projects which I didn't even know actually existed under the HDFC vertical. I was only aware of the Pays app, which was horribly designed, and I was like, I could be the one who could change this design language completely and bring in something new, which I'm actually working on right now. So hopefully we will get to see a different version of Pays app eventually. But coming back to talking about visual design, so yeah, I think my process usually during working with someone like an HDFC has been very interesting, because we do, of course, a lot of UI landscaping. We do a lot of UX landscaping, but we also sort of do a lot of like vigorous user testing with our ideas, because uh, uh, something that might work out in Bombay might not work out at all in a Kolkata, or might not work out in Delhi. And it's important that we get like the correct sample size, and then try out these prototypes and interactions with all of these people, and understand if they can also play around with the application. So we give them like a journey. We ask them to complete a certain task, and we see what process are they following. So we map their journey, and we figure out how do we take this application forward from there. So yeah, of course, we follow like an agile framework. We have a scrum master with us who's constantly giving us direction. So a lot of give and take, a lot of back and forth between designers, developers. So even when I say designers, we have a different team for visual design, and we have a different team for UX design. So I want to also understand exactly what is it exactly that a lot of you are interested in. How many of you are interested in working as a visual designer? You can drop in your comments, or you can just raise your hand. I think if it's better if you just maybe type it out, or you can just say it out loud. That way I can just clearly very, very easily see. Because if you raise hands, I just get like a lot of names, and it's a little confusing for me. So let me just, okay.
Hi, I am Nishtha. I'm interested in following. Hi, uh, I'm really interested in going into illustrations and
Okay.
but as a hobby,
Okay.
and into UI UX or interaction designer. Like I am interested in UI UX design,
Mhm.
looking at the scope, but I want more from it for my career.
Okay, understood. Okay,
Yeah.
so what I did was I initially started off as an illustrator, like I've already mentioned, but over the years, so I have been working as an illustrator for the last 6 years. And then eventually I felt at a point that I was just so curious to understand my users, and also see my work actually being used by a bigger crowd. I think that's when that curiosity kicked in me, and I was like, what, let me see if I can actually get into the field of UI UX and give this a try. So for anybody who's actually confused, I would highly recommend that you take part in a lot of design hackathons. I think even during ऐसा अभी भी होता है, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so ऐसा में I'm pretty sure design hackathons होते होंगे.
Yeah, Design 360.
Okay, great, perfect. So you must participate in all these design hackathons, because I remember the first design hackathon I went to, I was so horrible at it. And I think that opened my eyes to the fact that, listen, design as, working as an illustrator is very different from working as a UI UX designer, because illustrations are actually like, you are, the owner of your work, and you can honestly decide whichever crazy direction you want to take your illustrations with, which is lovely, which is great fun. And but then eventually working as a UI UX designer, everything is driven by a customer. So even right now, I work as a visual designer in the morning, and then by night I work as an illustrator. So you have to find your own balance, exactly where you want to see yourself eventually. Also, I would highly recommend that you, even if you're starting out as a visual designer, first of all, start early and make sure that you monetize your work. Because there are a lot of people out there who are using different kinds of platforms, and I think there are like 17, 18-year-olds who are already minting their NFTs, and we've already walked into an era where digital illustrators are going to make loads of money, like the way they made way back in the Renaissance era. So if you are really like interested in this field, like whatever that interests you right now, take that and commit yourself to it 101%. I think that for me was the biggest plus, that even if I didn't know what I was going to do eventually with it, but I knew that I'm going to commit to this role as a designer or as an illustrator, and we will see what eventually happens. And I also made sure that even if I was making, I think the first set of illustrations that I was making was actually, I made an illustration for a t-shirt, and it was for 300 rupees. And then I went all the way up to 1 lakh eventually over the years by just making more and more and more work. So you have to be very smart about putting out your work and then making sure that you monetize it. Otherwise, you will lose interest in your work, especially if you're working as an illustrator. As a visual designer, of course, you will have to do a lot of mock projects. You will have to do a lot of these hackathons, like I said. Okay, there's some comment about UX research and UX design. Okay, I'll come to that as well. Great. Yeah, I think if you want to have a career as a UI UX designer, I would highly recommend that you start with hackathons, do a lot of mock projects, take a lot of freelance projects. It's a lot of hustle if you're working as a designer. I mean, everybody eventually makes good money, by the way, as designers, but it's all about who is able to, maneuver their way through that hustle the right way and as early as possible. And it's okay if you take your time. I mean, for me, I am a little bit of a, like, I need everything as quick as possible. So I think that sometimes doesn't even work in my favor. But I think I'm someone who wanted to make sure that, I'm able to make as much money as possible from my work as well. So I had to sort of figure out the business aspect of my work. And I do think that designers should and must be good businessmen as well. You should know how to have conversations with, your whoever your mentor is, or, someone who's hiring you. You should understand how you can sell your work the right way. And you can tell them, okay, you know what? I think your interactions are not that great. Maybe that's something that I can help you with. Or maybe your animations are not that great. Or maybe I want to help with, working as a UX researcher. So you have to pick. I would highly recommend that you, first of all, like, fiddle around with everything and then figure out what is it that you are most drawn to, and then commit to it 101%, and then develop your portfolio accordingly. Okay, we have a question on how we can monetize our work and what steps to take to showcase it efficiently. Okay, great. Yeah, good question. So what I did was I started out with curating my work on Instagram. However, today there are a lot of other different platforms as well. Of course, Instagram, I sometimes feel that right now Instagram is very saturated as well. I think maybe when I started off, it was 2014, 2015. Instagram was still relatively a newer platform in India. So it worked out really well for me. And I was able to sort of reach out to people, and sometimes they would, get back to me as well. Aajkal to pata nahi, Instagram pe log, I don't even know if how many of them will actually reach back to you, because there's just too much happening on Instagram right now. But there's a lot of other platforms. I think there's ArtStation, there's Behance as well. There's of course, if you're working as a UI UX designer, Dribbble, Behance, these are great platforms to put out your work, and of course apply like a crazy person, apply on a Glassdoor or a LinkedIn. I've reached out, I've messaged people, personally as well, if I wanted to do a freelance project. Even my first work as a UI UX designer, it was actually as an intern, and it happened due to networking. While I was working with Dimension, I knew that I wanted to work at the intersection of fashion and e-commerce. So I thought, Dimension is a good platform. It's starting out. I can learn a lot. So I went into it. I made contacts with the design manager, and then finally curated my entire portfolio, sent it out, and then got hired. And if you are looking out as looking at making money out of being an illustrator, I would recommend that you use your platform like an Instagram or an ArtStation or even sometimes even a Dribble, because there are a lot of visual designers, there are a lot of illustrators on Dribble and Behance as well. Put out your work, curate it, and make it unique, make it yours. A lot of illustrators start out with copying. I have done that as well. I used to look at works of a Shomack Blueby or a Megan Morrison, and I would also study their business models. So I would go to their websites and I would see, okay, Megan Morrison has put out her work, and she very clearly mentions that these are the kind of works that she's selling out. She would have a shop on an Etsy, or she would, you can use an Instamojo to honestly put out your work on sale. I've done that. I've even used Instagram, for that matter, is my biggest source of income. Had become my biggest source of income at one point when I was just freelancing. So I would let people, DM me, and then I would take orders, and then I would curate stuff, and then I would, eventually I had a manager who would, take care of my sales as well, because at one point the volumes were really high and I was not able to do it on my own. So it happens step by step. Like, take baby steps first, and make sure that your work speaks of something that you connect with, because that way there's going to be longevity, there's going to be sustainability in your work. Otherwise you will get bored, you will not be able to do a lot of work, you lose interest. So if the money is coming in and if you are feeling satisfied as an illustrator, you will continue with it. And I will make it very clear that it is not a very rainbow colored world out there when you're starting out as a designer. It is a lot of hustle, and you might lose a lot of your interest as well. And I think that goes on for any career for that matter. Even if you're working as a software engineer, I mean, when you're starting out, it really is difficult, but eventually you have to be very perseverant. You have to be, there's grit, there's a lot of resilience that is involved. So keep at it, keep churning out a lot of work. In fact, when I started out, I did a lot of work for free as well, and that hurt real bad, because I was like, itna kaam kar raha hu main, itna effort dal raha hu main, or even making a t-shirt design for just 300-500 rupees really hurt me. But then I knew that if I continue doing this work, I will eventually reach a point where I can ask money, which is like 1,000 times more than what I'm earning right now. So it happened. But to be very honest, in a lot of ways, I feel that I have an uncle who's also an artist, and he has worked with a lot of big folks, but it took him so much longer to actually get to a point where he could monetize his work the way he is doing it right now. But for folks like us, we have access to the internet. You can read up a zillion articles about how to put out your work, and then figuring out making you can honestly reach out to the design manager at IDEO or a Pentagram on Instagram or on Twitter, and if they find your work interesting enough, they will actually get back to you. So we literally live in that kind of a world where we don't even have to wait or write a mail to them and wait for them to revert. We can find our way out our own way. We can just curate our work, and then be smart about how you're curating your work as well. So initially when I started out, if I make an illustration of a Masawa Gupta and just tag her, and when she comes back to my portfolio and she sees just one illustration, she's not going to give me any job. But if I curate a certain amount of work and then create a certain kind of content and then tag that right kind of person, then it makes sense. So even if you're reaching out to a design manager at an IDEO or a Pentagram, curate a certain amount of work, and then reach out to them, and maybe they will revert, and maybe they'll be like, what, I really like your work, and we can work together. So there's a lot of trend research and forecasting that I do think is very important. Like, I think especially as designers, you need to understand what's working right now, so that you create some content which is relatable but also very relevant to today, but also make sure that you're looking at a future and be like, okay, this is what is going to work tomorrow. For example, 3D illustrations have become like a big rage right now. So if you think that it is going to become a thing of the future, then you better start curating your content from now on, where you can reach a point where you can also fiddle around a lot with 3D illustrations and create a certain amount of content. Maybe use an open source software like a Blender and just put out your put out a bunch of work. And then even if it's bad, just like start with something. It's okay to be completely horrible at what you do, but start at least with something, and then put out a certain amount of work, and then keep reiterating it. I do that all the time. I go back to my older work all the time and see what can I do to fix it, even on my sketchbook for that matter, because I do keep switching between my sketchbook and my my iPad or my digital illustrations. So I keep a lot of illustrations even in my sketchbook, and I'm like I keep going back and trying to fix it in some way so that I can better myself or better my craft as well. So you have to first of all understand कि आपको करना क्या है, because visual design, illustrations, UX designer, UX research, these are all completely different things. And I do think it is important to be a specialist at one and then try to be a generalist. Even at my time at NIFT, I think one of my professors used to tell me that this is the world of generalists. I don't think that it works that way at all. Like, especially when you're working in the professional environment, people will want you to be at least good at one thing. Even if you are a software engineer for that matter, even if you're a developer, you can eventually get into UI UX very much. Even if you're a data scientist, you can certainly become a UI UX designer eventually, because all of these aspects do come into the picture eventually. However, become a specialist, and then, like for example, right now I am working as a visual design specialist. I know that I have a certain amount of hold when it comes to illustrations. When my design mentor comes to me with a design problem and says, we know we are looking at this kind of an illustration, then I exactly know what to do. So it helps, and it also increases my efficiency. So have a certain area where you are like amazing at, where nobody can pull you down, and then start looking at all the other aspects of design, and then figure out where we can go ahead with it. And I do think design thoda, like a little bit of education also helps. If you are looking at taking up a course, working as a UI UX designer eventually, I would recommend that you can take up a design course eventually, maybe a human computer interaction course, or experience design, or interactive digital media, whatever suits you. Take up some professional education, so that, like, solid education, so that you can back it up when you're also putting out your work. And I think the biggest takeaway from working as a designer has also been, going to a design school has also been learning a lot of great things from all the other people who are around me. So I have learned a lot from just going to my classroom and just looking at other people's work and their interpretations of a certain assignment. Take up, maintain your portfolio on a medium for sure. If you are working as a UI UX designer, have your own website. Like, these are things that you can certainly have around you. And then once you get your first opportunity as a UI UX designer, or as a visual designer, or as an illustrator, you will eventually start understanding what are the needs of that specific job. And I think you learn a lot more, especially as a designer. You learn so much more at a job than you will in a classroom. Like, my 3-4 years of design education were like, seemed absolutely like meaningless when I actually walked into a proper design sprint, and I was like, this is not what it looked like in the classroom at all. So
Hi,
yeah.
can I say something?
Yes, yes. If you could please
Yeah,
like I can, if I can please
I'm
get a name as well.
I'm Shauna.
Sean, is it?
Yeah, Shauna. Yeah, that's okay.
Okay.
So the thing is, yeah, I've been studying computer science and design in this course. I think we're the first batch.
Okay.
And so right now, what has happened is I have always been a designer. I have really liked to do design. I have made illustrations from I when I was a school kid. I
Yeah.
still make them. I am kind of proficient at using Wacom and making illustrations. And I am already doing a UX design internship at
Okay.
InfoEdge.
Oh
So
wow,
the
great.
thing is, what the thing is, as a UI designer or a UI UX designer, I've always thought that I'd have, like, to do user research, focus on their problem, find a solution, create something, and which would like fix the issue and put it in an aesthetic sense. But when you're working at a higher company, you don't know like the the top what the top layer is doing. You're just told to do this.
Mhm.
When
Yeah.
does this convert to a position where you can make like a difference, and how long does it take? Because I don't see myself right now like increasing my salary or asking for a raise, because I'm just just converting their thoughts to design. So I
Okay.
don't want to exactly do that. I want to like be in the process of like creating and choosing, because right now when I'm making the design, I feel like this may not work. But I'm
Okay.
someone above me is also a UI designer only who has suggested this. So
Okay. Okay.
when do I just like so first of all, people don't take CSD students right now seriously because no one has understood our field,
Mhm.
the recruiters.
Yeah.
So we can't sell our portfolio as designers or as software engineers.
Mhm.
So because we just haven't got the time to focus on design entirely.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how long does it take to like dedicatedly create a profile and just apply somewhere which will where you will learn something? So is it better to like apply to startups right now, or just continue at like these places where there are already saturated like number of people who are doing the things and you are just like converting them?
Okay, okay. First of all, good that you have this awareness that you have a timeline in your head. I think that first of all is already like that is a winning situation that you're already in. So it is extremely important. I was actually going to come to that eventually as well, that have a plan in your head. It might not work out the way you had envisioned it to be, but always start with a plan so that you are always moving ahead and you're making sure that you're not going back in time at all. And what you're talking about, I was actually going through a very similar situation, last year when I had just, I was actually doing a thesis with Dimension. While I was working as a UI UX designer during my thesis period, a lot of the information was not given out to me. And I was just feeling almost handicapped. I was like, I am designing for an audience that I don't even know, that I don't even understand. So what am I even doing? I'm just following, what my design manager is asking me to do, and that's
Yeah,
boring. I
exactly.
want to have control over my work. So what I did was I created a lot of, first of all, whatever project that I was doing, I created a scenario around it. So even if I was just working on a UI project, I created a mock project around it where I became the design manager and I decided how the entire project was going to flow. So I came up with, you might have, read about the double diamond structure. Um,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, so I basically followed that entire model and I created my own user journeys. I created my own information
Yeah,
architecture. I created my own, user personas. I did my user testing. I
exactly.
created,
I also do the exact same thing when my project doesn't end up the way I want to.
yeah,
What
yeah.
like
You must
I
totally do that. And you must always also put a, like, journal it, document it always. Maybe put it on a medium or just have a PDF of your work as well. I do that all the time, especially for projects that are on, like, I've signed an NDA for,
so
I cannot put it out. Yes,
so
go
what's
on. You were
happening
saying
right
something?
now is we have this portfolio. I think a lot of people in my batch are
Okay.
facing the same issue. Like Nishtan, I can see a couple of the people here.
Yeah.
They have like portfolios, decent portfolios. Who do
Hmm.
we apply to right now, and how to like? Should we apply to startups? Should we apply to design companies? Should we apply to big companies?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
where will we taken seriously?
Okay, okay. So, how I did it was I started out with a startup because I felt like I would have more control of my work in a startup. And also because what happens is in a bigger company, there's a lot of hierarchy and you miss out on a lot of, context to your work. And you only get to know what your design manager is telling you. And that way is not a great way for you to actually, come up with a good portfolio. So I would suggest that you work with a startup, but let's also be very honest about the fact that working in a startup is not easy. There's going to be a lot of hiccups on the way. Startups
And
don't
it is
always
severely underpaid.
sorry, come again.
It is severely underpaid.
Not
Like,
only is it underpaid, but also it is very difficult to maneuver your way sometimes. It can be very frustrating, and I've totally understand where you're coming from, because I've been in that situation where I was like, this person just doesn't understand what I'm trying to say. And
exactly.
as designers, we want to have that amount of that level of power over that project. So the thing is, this is a part of the hustle, and it might go on for like a year or two, but trust me, you things do get better eventually. I worked as a like I said, I worked in a startup for a few months, and I realized that, okay, you know what, now I felt at one point that I'm ready to actually make that big leap, take that big leap of faith, and apply for a certain position where I can take charge of the projects myself, and I don't have to work under anybody anymore. So what I did was, of course, I did a lot of mock projects. Whatever work I did during my internship as well, I put it all together. And then I started pitching my portfolios via LinkedIn, via Glassdoor, and I was looking for jobs during COVID. And I feel like if I could find, if I could find a job during COVID, anything can happen. So, and it was a time when all hiring was completely closed. So, and while I was at NIFT, even NIFT had told us that, what, we don't have any openings right now, nobody's going to get any jobs anymore. But I was like, what, my work is good enough, I will apply and we will see. So I kept applying again and again and again, and then eventually did a lot of design assignments as well, which honestly sometimes can be very taxing. And there are going to be companies which are going to probably use your work the wrong way as well. So even when you're sitting for interviews, I would certainly suggest that make sure that the company doesn't want you to work on their products at all. So if you're working, say for example, for if you are sitting for a design job for, say for example, a Book My Shop, do not Book My Show. Do make sure that you're not working on a Book My Show project. Ask them for a project which is completely different. Ask them to redesign an Arogya Setu app. Ask them for something that is not related to their work, so that you can actually show your possibilities and your design expertise, and make sure that you're not being misused, or your talent is not misused, or your ideas are not being stolen. So be very vehement about that, be very smart about that. And then it is a lot of, like I said, a lot of hustle. You will have to keep applying, you will have to keep churning out a lot of work, but it eventually will. It took me a year to actually make that transition from being an intern working under someone, and then becoming a design manager, and then having that entire project under my head. It's a lot of extra hours that you will probably have to put in as well after your regular day job, where you come back and you work on your mock project, and work on complex information architectures. Don't do like chota mota website mat uthao. Maybe just take up like an Amazon and chalk out their information architecture, and work on more complex systems, work on design systems, read a lot of design thinking material as well. There's this book, I mean, you might have, anyway, most of you might have heard of Paul Morgan. He spoke about these 3 levels of design, where he talks about visceral, behavioral, and reflective design. These are elements that you must read about, and then bring that into your work as well. I think that's what is actually going to give you that push. So start with your mock projects.
Yeah. So like I got a lot of information from like your design of everyday things from like .com. But the thing is, I feel like in India, I don't know if it's an India issue or something. When you're doing this, people are not appreciating it enough. They're not even understanding what we're doing. They're just like, okay, it doesn't look good, or like it looks good, fine. I don't know what UI designers in India are supposed to do. Are we supposed to be taken seriously or not? I'm not understanding the situation. And also one more question, do we need to do a master's? Does it make it easier?
You're asking this question to a person who was also not taken seriously just for being himself. I'm a queer person who happens to be femme. I was never taken seriously my entire life, and I wanted to change that conversation. And I eventually was able to do it because I believed in the fact that I could change this entire conversation about queer people just like me, who were femme and were not taken seriously at all, who were basically mocked at all their lives. But that belief sort of changed the entire atmosphere around me. And even my work as a designer, initially when I started out, I was an electronics and communication engineer, and I made a transition into becoming a full-time designer. So I totally, completely relate to this entire, journey that you have going through, especially when you know that you have a software engineer friend of yours who might be getting a job at Facebook and, might be earning like a 30 lakhs or a 50 lakh job. And you are here working your ass off and you're working on all these smaller projects and you don't even know how things are going to turn out eventually. Of course, you are absolutely right about the fact, and I'm glad that you have that awareness that design in a lot of ways is also not taken very seriously right now in India. And that change in conversation has happened over the years and it will continue to happen. Design is going to be the future. So you have to take your work very seriously. You have to take yourself also a little seriously when it comes to taking the decisions that you take. You have to, like I said, commit to your decisions. Don't be agar aap आधे मन से कोई भी डिसीजन लोगे, it's not going to be successful, and you're always going to be very overpowered by these thoughts about my friends are doing so much better. They're already doing like a PhD in some fancy college abroad, and I'm still trying to figure my way out as a designer. Design is a lot about figuring out. However, it works out over time eventually. So take those baby steps eventually, and then eventually you will get to a point where you will get your your due, and you will get that 6-digit or 7-digit paycheck. It's going to happen eventually, but you have to take it like step by step. So thoda patience rakhna padega aap logon ko, and you have to continue believing in the fact that this is what I totally love doing, and I am going to make sure that I am going to get that fancy job as a visual designer or as a UI UX designer at a fancy company. And we have had so many designers from our college. I mean, there's Karan Bhaiya, who's working with as a UX designer with Google. There's Amya, who's working as a UX designer with IBM. There's Chanchal, another girl from my batch, who's working, I think, with Siemens right now as a UX designer. I'm working as a visual designer with HDFC. So there is very much a possibility to get to a point where you will earn really well. You just have to be patient. You have to curate your work in the right way. It'll take maybe a year or two. It might take a year extra than your peers, but you will certainly get there. I mean, I can give you a guarantee about that. And about coming to a question about masters, I do think that it helped me a lot, to be very honest, because I remember working out, applying for, jobs. Initially, because I worked at Bewakoof as well as a graphic designer for a bit before I went for my master's, and I did observe that there was a certain sense of people not taking my work seriously or my work seriously, and which is why I felt that maybe I can take up a master's and then things might turn out a little better than they were. However, that is not how it might necessarily work for everybody. There's Akib Wani, who recently was listed in Forbes 30 on the 30 list, an absolutely amazing designer. He's a visual designer as well. And he has had no formal education in design at all. In fact, he was doing terribly through school. And he went on to have his own design studio where he's making so much money. He's working with Nike and Adobe's of the world. And it takes a lot of grit, like I said, grit, perseverance, patience, and commitment to your work. And it will happen where you will start earning a lot of money, good money, and be also very proud of the work that you're putting out, have a good control over your project.
So, do you have any idea of like the colleges abroad? Like I checked out Delft University in Netherlands for interaction design. So do you think a good master's program in interaction design, UX design, or like just human-computer interaction, is that like will that like help me step my level up and just do this entire procedure better if I do a master's?
Well, first of all, I'm not sure exactly what your course is currently right now, because I think it's at the intersection of both computer science and design, right? If I'm not wrong. So I will probably have to understand your current curriculum to see if the extra education as in your master's is going to be an add-on. For me personally, I came from an electronics and communication background, and I knew that I needed some bit of a help as as a designer, and therefore I did end up going to a design school. I know that I think one of our seniors was also. I think even Shan right now, she's also a senior. She's in University College, I think University of Maryland, and she's done her master's in HCI as well. I think you'll probably have to ask them exactly if that course has been a plus for them, because she comes from computer science background specifically. I do, however, think that a master's education does help, because it did help me. It gave me a lot of concrete direction to what I wanted to do. Because when you're working specifically as a designer, or you're having you have a specialization of sorts in your masters, you get to fiddle around with a lot of other areas as well, and you get to figure out exactly which one of these paths is it that I really want to take. So it's for you to now decide if you want to have your path charted out through jobs, through a series of jobs, or through a series of internships and jobs, or and then eventually going for a master's, or if you really want to step into a master's right away. It's very contextual, so I would probably need a one-on-one session with you to be able to answer that question
Oh, yeah,
specifically
yeah.
with respect to you.
Sorry to be holding up other questions. Just
No,
guys
not at all. But yeah,
please
I think,
ask.
I hope the journey that I've had gives some direction to you all, that it might help if you specifically if you're very sure that you want to take up a course in design, and it does give you a little bit of a push. I'll be lying if I say that it doesn't help, because working for example, applying as a UI UX designer as an intern with BCG, they are going to take you a lot more seriously if you have a specific specialization in design.
Exactly.
I guess Rohan has also some query. He has raised his hand. So Rohan, you can unmute yourself.
Yeah, hi. So I'm
Hi.
Rohan and this is Royal.
Hello.
Yeah, so we both are in college. So I wanted to ask a question regarding NFTs. If do you know actually about NFTs, so I can actually go ahead.
So yeah, of course, non-fungible tokens. Well, they are all over the internet right now, and yeah, I have a couple of friends who've been minting a lot of NFTs. So I've been just following their journey and trying to figure out, how are they doing it. But I think one of my friends, Amrit Pal Singh, might have heard of him. He's actually become like one of the biggest NFT stars in India right now. He minted
Yeah, I did read a post about it.
Ethereums, and he's amazing. And I do feel that yeah, I mean, go on with your question, and then I'll probably give some context about it.
So like, how actually does one go about? How is the NFT space different than an independent artist space
Okay.
right now, according to you?
Well, a lot of independent artists are on, minting their tokens in these different platforms. Maybe a super rare, or Rarible, or an OpenSea. I think what we need to understand is that NFTs are great, and it's a great space where illustrators eventually can feel extremely empowered to take up a career in illustrations, and be very sure of the fact that if they do keep doing or churning out a certain amount of work, it will eventually help them. But I think there's a lot of hurriedness in a lot of people as well to just jump onto this trend and be like, you know what, I'm here, I'm an illustrator, I've been illustrating for the last 2 years, now I can become an NFT star. You might end up becoming that, you never know. However, I do feel that there is a process to it. I mean, especially, I've had conversations about these, I've also listened to I've read a lot of articles that a lot of NFT artists are writing. Of course, Amrit's work I've been following personally. And I do think that he's also mentioned about this. You have to create an audience for your work first. You have to create a community. And that takes years. It's not going to happen in just 1 year. You have to keep churning out a certain amount of work, keep understanding what's working around you, understand the trends that are working around you, and then choose what you're going to also put on these NFT platforms. First of all, NFT platforms are invite only. I think a Foundation or a Zora or a Super Rare, these are all completely invite only platforms. So you can maybe start out with putting out your work on like a Rarible or an OpenSea, and then see how this entire platform is really treating you. You have to also maybe invest a little in buying some other artists' work as well, and seeing how this is going to churn out for you. And Amrit has written very well about this. He minted one of his works for 15 Ethereums recently, and he's completely new to this. But the reason why he was able to sell his work on a Foundation was because he's created a certain community for himself. He's at a level where he has given a lot to the community. He has so many different kinds of these different people who have been his clients, like big ass clients who've bought his work previously, and eventually were happy to invest in his work right now as well. So he has been working like for good like 13-14 years now in this field, so it takes a lot of patience, a lot of grit. You create that community, and it can totally happen like within a year as well, but you will have to figure out your own unique path for that. But if you really are very sure that you want to be like an NFT star eventually, then just like keep creating a lot of work, keep curating a lot of content, reach out to a lot of these different platforms, agencies, work with them, create a lot of work. And then if you feel confident enough with your work, then you can certainly go freelance. And he creates a lot of packages as well, so he's very used to this platform. He knows what agencies want. So yeah, there is definitely a certain design language that works even when it comes to selling out or putting out your work on an NFT platform.
So you nailed you. I think you nailed it. So thanks a lot for answering my question.
Yeah. Happy to help. And yeah, I can take up more questions if we have any.
Guys, you can unmute yourself, and if you have any query, you can ask.
You can also like ask me very random questions. They don't have to be necessarily about design. You can also tell me about your experiences right now in IIIT. Like I would really like to know how things are going on right now, and how you guys are, how you are maneuvering your way through IIIT. How's this entire time of studying during quarantine has been for you all? Of course, you can ask me. You can reach out to me, Ria. I'm available on Instagram, Twitter, Behance, Dribble, Anwesh.Sahoo. That's my handle. On Twitter, it's Sahoo Anwesh, but yeah, Anwesh Sahoo, Sahoo Anwesh. Kuch bhi likhoge. I think on Google, you can anyway type and you will find all these different platforms where you can
Like,
connect.
do let me know when you make an NFT. I think I'll buy one.
Me too.
That would be
You
that.
all can meet, no? Like Anvesh, I would be really happy to meet you and just discuss all these illustrations and animation and stuff.
I would love to. I mean, I would actually love to come to IIIT also sometime. I'm not based out of Delhi anymore, but sometime maybe we can, coordinate with maybe Dipali or Khaled, and we can perhaps, find out a time when I can come to college and, have a face-to-face conversation with you all. So
Yeah,
yeah, I
that
mean,
would
I'm
be
also.
Currently तो कॉलेज में अभी कोई है ही नहीं.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. कि अभी तो कॉलेज में कोई नहीं है. जब वापस आएंगे in a post-COVID world when everybody's around, maybe then we can
yeah.
have a more physical face-to-face conversation. Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay, good. I think
So
we don't have any more questions. So yeah, we've come to the end of our conversation today. I hope you all had a good time. I hope I could give you like some direction with your work. It's a lot of figuring out. Like I'll always say, even I'm still like in that process of trying to, it took me so many years to get my work featured in a Rolling Stones or a Vogue India. And it was a lot of networking. It was a lot of, working for no money, but things eventually, worked out for me. Someone's raising their hand. You can unmute yourself and you can ask me your questions. I think it was Rishabh or someone I just saw.
yeah, Rishabh, you are not audible. Either you can type in chat box and we can read your query. Rishabh, if you're speaking something, you're not audible. You can type in the chat box.
I think is Rishabh online? Okay, no worries. कोई बात नहीं है ऋषभ, अगर आप connect नहीं कर पा रहे हैं, you are free to reach out to me anyway. I'm available on several different platforms on the internet. The internet is my home right now. So yeah, I mean, I would also suggest if you want to get a little context about, how to sort of curate your content as well. Like you are free to, come onto my Instagram. I share a lot of my work as a visual designer. I share a lot of my explorations, and I also always try and keep figuring out, what's going to work with my, clientele or people who are, placing orders with me. I used to freelance as a wedding illustrator, so I think that was a space where probably I got the biggest amount of, my or like the financial aspect of my work, I think, fulfilled, where I realized that okay, this is a space that really works for me. So yeah, you can come reach out to me on Instagram, follow my work, see
Hello,
how.
am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Hello, this is Meg. It might be showing Rishabh on your screen. Actually, my brother is from Triple IIT, so he told me that you will be coming here and speaking. I'm
Okay.
actually currently studying fashion designing
Okay.
from Amity University. I'm a bachelor student. So
Okay.
I just wanted to say thank you. I was really feeling hopeless. I thought that nothing is going to
There's
happen
hope at
after
the
this.
end of this tunnel, which is called design.
Thank you. Thank you. I was honestly feeling very hopeless that, I'm actually interning right now and I'm getting paid absolutely nothing, juggling college and then, working my ass off and creating so many things. And I thought this is just it. And as someone else also spoke, that I have myself seen that there is not a lot of respect for designers here. So, seeing that you have made such a name for yourself and you're doing great, that just makes me really happy. And I just want to thank you. And especially
Thank you.
creating a name for the LGBTQ plus community, it just makes me really happy.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for your
Thank
kind
you.
words. Brightens up my day as well.
So I think we can end this meet here.
Yes, I
So
think we're past 3 o'clock as well. So
yeah,
yeah,
thank you, Anish, for joining and taking your time out.
no
Hope to
worries.
see you soon in college.
Yes, hope to come back to college and meet everybody, face to face. That would be really nice. And thank you
Yeah,
so much for having me again. Yeah, please feel free to reach out to me, and lots of love, light, and luck to everybody who's trying out this career, because it's amazing. Just keep at it. That's all that I'll have to say. Okay, cool. See you all.
Thank you.
bye, Anish.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Anwesh.
Anvesh.
Anvesh.
Bye bye. Bye bye.